So, Onmo, you were telling me about someone you know being doxxed, yeah?
Yeah, it was my sister in particular. She had her Roblox account hacked.
Really?
Yeah, it was around 8 years ago. It was a real mess. She was really desperate once and fell for a scammer giving out some free Game Awards, which kind of sounds like a tech-hook phishing scam.
Oh, that could have not been good for her mental health.
Yeah, that had to have messed up.
Don't worry, she's fine now, and she learned from her mistake, so it all ended okay.
I mean, still, she could have contacted support and get the account back.
I mean, well, about that part, she literally...
Brought to you in part by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and Microwork Security Foundation, you're listening to Click, Post, Exposed. I'm your host, Jonah Swerdlow, a researcher and professional journalist from the AJC. Our guest speakers for this very special bonus episode are
Omokayode, representing Microwork Security.
Terrion, a psychology professor at UGA.
Justin, philosophy professor, also from UGA.
And Seth, the co-host and sound designer.
The first 4 episodes of our show were about various cybercrimes, what they are, and what could happen if you fall victim to them. We also discussed the case of Mir Islam, a man who committed the crime of doxing and stalking a college student. In this bonus episode, we will go into the specifics of doxing, its definition, the psychology of it, and the legality of it. So, Almo, what exactly are the specifics of your job?
My job at Microworks is to essentially create and maintain algorithms and programs that detect and combat malware and other malicious software, but I also aid in the prevention and recovery of stolen data.
So an anti-doxing expert, yeah.
Indeed. And on the topic of doxing, as stated by Lanternman's article, Doxing Redux, doxing is generally understood as the buying and selling, gathering, or otherwise sharing of personal information online, often with malicious intent.
In the case of Islam, this malicious intent was impersonation and stalking.
Exactly. And his goal was to get as close as possible to his target by any means necessary.
But one must also consider the consequences the doxing attack may have on a victim. How do they feel knowing their personal information was compromised, and what sort of mental toll did this take?
Additionally, Lanternman states, with this private information in hand, individuals can threaten, stalk, harass, or damage the reputations of others. Members of the legal community are at particular risk of having their information accessed and used without their knowledge or direct consent.
So we need to remember that there are some major psychological impacts that crime like this can have. Thankfully, there are some preventative measures that we can all employ in order to protect ourselves as well as those around us. We'll get into that later. First, let's hear from some of our psych experts.
So how does doxing involve psychology? Well, let us tell you. Doxing causes immense amounts of stress on victims. It can lead to many psychological traumas such as mood, anxiety, and eating disorders, as well as social phobias. Because of these traumas and stresses, doxing can influence effects on people involved.
Here's the messed up part, how we think we're dealing with doxing. Communication research dives into this thing called the third-person effect. It's a study that surveyed adults about doxing and found a key trend. People believe doxing in the media affects others more than it affects them.
I mean, it's definitely not every day you get doxed.
It's not every day you get robbed, but it can still happen. Either way, having personal information exposed can result in worries about how the information could be getting used online and by others, causing someone to become hyperfixated on removing this from the internet.
This is how it works. People acknowledge that doxing exists in the news and on social media, but they consider themselves less likely to be influenced by it. They have this idea that others are more vulnerable.
Kind of like a form of imposter syndrome, but for other people.
If someone were to get doxed, even after believing it wouldn't happen to them, this in itself causes long-term stress as they would continue to worry that their personal information is still out there somewhere.
Yes, this belief has consequences. It changes how seriously we take our own privacy and whether we want rules and laws around doxing.
Psychological harm was actually rated the highest among the 11 harassment types defined by Cliff Lamp and others.
What are some of those harassment types? And what does that mean in the context of the criminal psychology?
Some of the types include doxing, spreading rumors, and sharing sexual photos. And among these other extremely harmful effects, psychological harm was still deemed as the most harmful.
Then you got the more physical damage. Research using data from the extremist cybercrime database shows cyber attacks cause victims to lose time, data, and money.
The psychological effects of doxing can alter a person's lifestyle, forcing them to change the way they live out of fear of something like this happening again, resulting in a change that could influence their entire life, past, present, and future.
The bottom line is this: doxing hurts both mentally and physically. It's a reality we can't ignore.
This alteration can even affect the people around someone who is doxed. If the victim becomes a socially different person than who they once were, certain people can become concerned with that person's health. The mental aspects of doxing are just as important as the legal aspects. It is good to focus on someone's mental health when they experience something like this.
It's definitely important to check on someone who has experienced a situation like this.
Let's move on to helping some people, yeah?
Our listeners are up to date on doxing and its definition, as well as the psychology behind someone who would commit this crime.
Now we're going to get into doxing specifics, the technology behind it, its place of a crime in the legal system, and how you can prevent it or recover from it, or if it ever happens to you.
Hopefully not.
Yeah, not saying we want anyone to get doxed.
So, doxing most often happens when someone is able to take control of a device through various means, and then they use the data from that device to determine its location. There is an article I read recently written by a professor at the University of Las Vegas, Nevada, that gives a pretty intricate description of how doxing and other cybercrime happens. He writes, VoIP attack tactics follow familiar patterns, including reconnaissance and scanning, topology mapping, active and passive fingerprinting, password detection, and so forth.
VoIP? What is that?
VoIP is Voice over Internet Protocol, and it's basically the system that most devices use to allow for phone calls to happen over the internet rather than through landlines and.
Got it. So, Jonah, what are all those things that you listed about doxing?
So those are the different methods that a doxer or other cybercriminal might use to get your information. Scanning, topology mapping, fingerprinting, password detection, all of these are very high level, but they all basically come about because someone isn't safe or smart enough.
The important thing is practicing safety and caution online is super important. Keep passwords safe, don't click suspicious links, and don't go to suspicious websites. Do that and generally be smart while surfing the web, and you should be fine.
I see. Now, someone referenced something about the legality of doxing earlier. Can you expand on that?
Sure, that article I just quoted has another line to shed some light on that. You want to read about this?
Sure thing. Although federal legislation has been proposed, as of this writing, there is no federal statute that is specifically related to 911 spotting and doxing.
Seriously? So there's nothing at all in the law for doxing specifically?
That's right, and that's why it's so important that you're safe online. Now, obviously, if you get doxed or otherwise fall victim to some sort of digital crime, you can likely go to court and seek recompense. All this means is that there isn't specific precedent for doxing, which could make the legal battle more complicated.
On the social media side of doxing, for your account, make sure to set your accounts to either private or make sure only that your friends can see your posts or information. Also, you should have different usernames so it's harder for people to access your accounts.
If you have information that's important to your work or school, create a unique email address that's for your most important contacts or account.
And hide your private information. You should remove any addresses, places of work, or any specific locations from your social media/work accounts.
Additionally, monitor and remove your personal data collected by websites and data brokers by rejecting cookies requested by websites and other optional data collection practices.
And lastly, I know this is obvious in the site, but please avoid discussing personal information that could be used against you, as well as anything that can identify personal information about yourself.
Ending things off, Click Post Exposed is a joint collaboration between the Atlanta Journal-Constitution Organization and MicroWorks Security.
Our sponsors are the aforementioned organizations as well as the university Justin and I teach at the University of Georgia.
Oh, and special thanks to the U.S. Attorney's Office for giving us the green light on the case this podcast was concerned with.
One last thing before we go, Jonah.
Yeah, we'd like to provide a few important pieces of information before we part. After listening to this podcast, we'd like for you to ask yourself these important questions.
Am I giving away too much information online?
If so, what can I do to manage this personal information while still being able to properly communicate with those who matter to me?
And are the accounts that I use online secure? And if not, what can I do to make them secure?
All these questions are crucial to ensuring that your information doesn't land in the hands of unsavory folks like Mir Islam.
Well, that's all from Click Post Exposed. I'm your host, Jonah, signing off.